I am Javanka McGee, co-host of Vision Pros Live. Please share with me your first, last name, the name of your business, and or book you have written.
My name is Dr. Greg Stewart, and I am the owner of Becoming More Coaching, Counseling, and Consulting. And I just wrote my first book, I Cubed, uh, Unlock the Inner Strength Behind Your Negative Emotions.
Love it. Thank you so much. Where are you located, Dr. Stewart?
In Rockwall, Texas. So here's Fort Worth, Dallas, and I-30 runs right near
Uh-huh.
them. And then Rockwall is about a half an hour outside of downtown Dallas.
Wow. Okay. We're not too far. I'm in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, it's all right. Love the Riverwalk. Been there
Yeah.
many times. Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes. All right. So, becoming more counseling, coaching, and consulting. Please share and tell us more about that.
Okay, so I'll kind of just give you the background to it as far as really quick version of my life story. So when I was a kid, I was the standard kid, like a lot of us, that we went to church and became a Christian. I was in junior church in the 70s, way back when. So my parents quit going, which meant I quit going to church, obviously. So I did the party hardy teen years and then suffered the consequences from those years, and then recommitted my life to Christ, and then ended up back at the same church. So I was going for I'm from Michigan. So in Western Michigan University, I was going to be a math major and a history minor teacher. But once all that changed, I, felt like I wanted to go into the ministry. So back in those days, it's when they started the adult programs for the bachelor's degree. Like I was in the 9-year program. So they had a once a week class meeting to get your bachelor's degree, because I had like 160 credits, but no degree. So, but my goal was I needed to get my bachelor's to get into my master's, but the degree I got was in organizational leadership. So that's what kind of planted the seed. So I liked the material, but I was more focused on getting into seminary. So my first semester in seminary, I took philosophy of counseling. So seminary is like about Greek, Hebrew, theology, but I took philosophy of counseling as a core course in my, defining moment. My eyes were opened up. And so right during that time, I mapped out a dual master's degree. So I got my MDiv in 3 years and then started my MA in counseling. And during that time, it was a perfect storm, another defining moment, when I started teaching as an adjunct professor for my alma mater in all the organizational leadership classes, and then fell in love with organizational leadership. And at the same time, I came across the book Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. And at the same time, I was underneath a leader who was a great guy, but he really had emotional intelligence concerns, right? So I got my MA in counseling, became a licensed counselor. So I was a pastor, adjunct professor, and a counselor. And then I started my PhD in counseling, but I did my dissertation on the relationship of emotional intelligence with job satisfaction and organizational commitment.
Wow.
And then started consulting and coaching for a large medical device company in Michigan, where it was headquartered, very powerful company. So I became a consultant. So moved to Texas, and then I worked for 3 years after I left the ministry. I had a great experience, but left the ministry. And then for 3 years, I flew around the country doing senior leadership team seminars. And then after I do that seminar on strategy, I would then coach the executives, right? And then continue the consulting. So then I worked at a behavioral health hospital with troubled teenagers. So, one thing led to another. Then in 2020, I started, doing full-time telehealth right out of my home, because a whole bunch of online programs started up. So that's kind of like my career. That's why it's becoming more. It's always helping whoever you are, grow, develop, become more than what you are. But that's where the counseling, coaching, and consulting kind of all came together. And I just finished my first book. So that's kind of, the culmination of not only the material, but my own deep growth experience, not just in, emotions, but going deep into my identity, value, and worth. And, it's difficult experience. Like I went through a divorce, so I had to do a deep dive in my own heart.
Yeah.
And the product of all that is a combination of the surface emotions, but also that deeper stuff. So in a nutshell, that's who I am.
No, I love that, because it just pretty much told your story.
Yep.
It's been a journey, Dr. Stewart, and who better to be able to consult, coach, or counsel than someone who has the experience. I
Yeah.
think that even in my own life, I'm like, I want somebody who has the experience. So
Right.
that definitely
Absolutely.
helps. What do you focus mostly on when it comes to becoming more the business?
It's right now, do mostly counseling right now. So individual clients, like pretty much, your average person. I don't do anything like of the really more deeper psychological, psychiatric issues. I just see your average Joe Schmo. About half my caseload is marriage counseling. And as a matter of fact, my second book, IQ for Couples, is coming out in February. So I have IQ, then IQ for Couples. So, and then, so most of it's counseling, telehealth. About 95% of my clients are, I'm licensed in like 7 states.
Oh,
So
wow.
I see, Colorado, Arkansas, Tennessee, Florida, Ohio, and see clients all over the country just doing telehealth. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And where would you like to go? What would be your ideal focus only?
So I like what I do. It's just like my career, as you can tell, it's kind of like sometimes it's ebbed over here, flowed over here.
Yeah.
And I want to, continue to honestly do all three, because I have a couple other books up and coming, but my next major book is going to be called The Leadership Quotient. And
Mm.
that's my paradigm of leadership coaching.
Okay.
So I want to expand in that realm, but still write these books and still do what I'm doing. It's just incorporate some other things and do much more public speaking, and which we can talk about later, as far as like shift a little bit less in the individual meetings and do more public, because from my book, I really do have like a vision and a mission that I want to, impact at a greater level than just like one-on-one.
Absolutely. So that brings me to tell me about your vision.
So my vision, so the way kind of things have panned out. So, really, regardless of who you voted for or what side,
Yeah.
everybody kind of senses that now is the time of where the pendulum has gone super far in one direction. Let me explain. So in my book, I talk about, it's really about the emotional experience, like everybody. So we have micro emotional goals, which is I'm thirsty, I want my thirst quenched, I'm hungry, I want to be fed. But it's really our macro emotional goals is about our quality of life. And that's what we're all in search of, right? So
Yeah.
our quality of life as defined by standard of living, living our values, and fulfilling like destiny and purpose, and vision, purpose, and so on.
Yeah.
So in our culture, when it comes to that emotional experience, I say that, grace and truth. So grace and empathy without truth and boundaries is enablement, but truth and boundaries without grace and empathy is toxic. So I took a step back in the book, first couple chapters, and said, in our culture that, let's say 30 years ago, it was so focused on truth that there was this toxicity of people feeling judged and, hurt and not being good enough. And so there was an emphasis on understanding, like in the 90s and so on, of grace and empathy. But the pendulum has swung so far to the other way that there hasn't been enough accountability and truth. So now it's starting, you can see in our culture, like, regardless of what you feel about DEI, the DEI concept is beautiful, but it's how we implement it that's the issue. So the concept should stay, but we need a different plan for implementation, right?
Yeah.
So it's starting to swing back more towards the center. So my vision is this: I want to equip as many people as I can to remove all power and control from the environment. I don't want my environment to control my emotions, have power over my emotions. I want the environment to influence my emotions, which is healthy. But it's really empowering people that you don't need anybody to pursue or validate you. You want them to, but you don't need them to. In order to do that, it's the solidification of your core, your identity, value, and worth of your own. Take control over that, and helping people become more emotionally intelligent, more emotionally powerful, and learn how to truly manage emotions in self and others. And so there's so much more like peace and confidence just on the surface, but also in order to do that, that's the whole point. We got to sometimes go deep and deal with that identity, value, and worth, insecurity stuff, as well as like trauma fits in our background. And I want to empower the masses to go to that next level of not just, decreasing negative emotions, but our negative emotions are maybe pointing to something deeper.
Yeah.
Find rest and peace. That's the vision.
And I want to say that that's a big vision, and that's some work. It sounds like some work, and
Yeah.
Sounds like you're starting it with the counseling piece, which is a one-on-one, right?
Yeah,
Figuring out how to help people one person at a time,
right.
which will result in that big, big, big vision of equipping people to have power and control over their emotions.
Exactly. And I've been doing actually a lot of leadership, discussions and podcasts where if you think about even leaders, so it does come over to the organization that the worst leaders a lot of us have ever been under are the ones who are insecure, the
Mhm.
ones who aren't teachable, the ones who honestly need to deal with their stuff first because they're puking their emotional stuff over all their followers, right? So it's not just like, so this is kind of like a every human thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously it's a huge task, but it's like, do my part. But I really believe that the material helps, from leaders to parents to couples to individuals, because we all, when we're away from the, the cameras and the podcast, and when we're sitting there by ourselves, we all know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Don't we? Right?
Yeah.
We all know,
And
right?
all I could do is go, yeah.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know?
Right.
And
Right.
I'm sure the rest of the audience is like, yeah,
Right.
uh,
Right.
when
And
we're on social media or anything else, it's that face, and so that's a really big impact too on us, Dr. Stewart. I mean, I was born in 79. I could say I was a 70s, 80s baby, and we didn't have that, right? I feel like, and I guess this is just my own opinion, is how social media has made that power even stronger than it has ever been. So as you work on this big vision and this big goal, Dr. Stewart, how do you handle the fact that social media is only going to become more powerful?
for sure. And by the way, I would never have pegged you to be born in '79. I would have guessed like 99. So compliments to you,
Well,
right?
thank you.
That feels good, right? Got kudos
Thank
from the
you.
host, right? For the host, right? All right. So with the funny about social media, because I'm 54 and I was on like 6 months ago now, because it's been a bit. 6 months ago, I was only on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I barely touched Instagram, but now I'm on them all. So I'm exposed to, as a 54-year-old, obviously I'm learning curve. I'm learning this stuff, but also when I see the product now. So here's the simple answer with social media.
Yeah.
Use social media to fulfill destiny, purpose, and calling, but
Mm.
which is influential. You do the influence outward, but don't you want feedback and validation, encouragement, but you don't need it,
Mm.
right? That's the key. It's the key that I'm here on social media to fulfill a vision, calling, destiny, purpose,
Yeah.
but I'm not on social media to receive validation at my identity, value, and worth.
Yeah.
So that's where I say, like, when we talk about, in real quick, that our emotional experiences, let's say we have the house of our heart behind us, we're on the front lawn.
Yeah.
And what do we all do? We start burning a lot of negative energy processing people who are upsetting us,
Yeah.
right? So, which we might have to address an issue. Again, I say, nothing bothers me unless it should, right? Because we have to address it. But I say a lot of times what happens, we notice that the issue we address is really on a scale of 1 to 10. It's only like a 1 or a 2, but we notice that we're at a 6, 7, or 8 emotionally.
Yeah.
So I call that the inflation of emotion. As soon as you have any inflation, you need to stop the presses, turn around, and walk into your own negative emotions. Walk into the front door of the house of your heart. So
Yeah.
on that first floor are namely insecurities, but the insecurities might be on the surface, but
Mhm.
right there's the doorway to the basement.
Yeah.
And you walk downstairs. And when we take things personally and the emotion gets inflated, that is the clearest sign. When we take things personally, that is the sign
Yeah.
where we need, it's an identity, value, and worth, because we're taking it down to, when you insult me or say something negative, it impacts my value and worth. So right there's the sign. We have to strengthen that. Then over in the cellar, that dark corner of the basement,
Yeah.
is trauma, whether it be big T, official trauma, or little t, just really, really hard experiences. So in this process of social media, it's, if I can strengthen my identity and worth and deal with my trauma, then I can keep it on the surface, and just like, negative emotions are okay, right? They're how we solve problems. But that's the issue on social media. I don't have a problem with social media. I think it's great. I mean, it's incredible entertainment,
Yeah.
but just keep it at where you are fulfilling a vision and not using social media to fill your value and worth.
Yeah.
That's the danger.
Yeah. And I love how you slow down so they could hear not to influence your value and your worth.
All
You know,
right.
it's taken just using it as like you said, entertainment. So you mentioned negative emotions. How can negative emotions unlock inner strength to
Yeah.
actually
So, right. So we have good emotions. Again, we have everything we do is trying to achieve an emotional goal, like I mentioned, micro and macro. Negative emotions simply happen when our emotional goal is blocked.
Mhm.
Or it could be like stress. It could be, oh goodness, I have to finish this paper or mow the lawn. It's stress, right? Those are normal negative emotions we experience. So the unlock in the inner strength has to do with that inflation, right?
Mhm.
So on the surface, the inflation of negative emotions, this issue is a 2, but I'm turning it into a 7. First is because we believe lies about ourselves, like,
Mhm.
I'll never get a job or this will never work out, right?
Yeah.
So that's one inflation. The second inflation is taking things personally. So, and then third is with trauma, I call it the carryover effect. What our brains do is we experience a situation, any situation where the impact from our past, it doesn't even have to be the exact same situation. So
Mhm.
let's say from my divorce, I'm insecure, but then I just, on a program, my mental model goes, oh no, Greg, here we go again. You're going to be exposed. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
call it the cure effect, where our scoops up emotion from our past and dumps it on the present, right? So the unlocking the inner strength of our negative emotions is, what do we do with that inflation? The
Mm.
inflation is what we need to walk into and figure out what's being exposed in us and then do that deeper dive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
for my own journey, I begin my introduction with, you cannot impart what you don't possess. So in
Mm.
my own journey, being 54, like, how can I help truly like you, like go to the next level and grow without it kind of running through me first? Because at the deeper level, I can teach you about emotions and all that, anxiety. But
Yeah.
really, when it comes to Javanka's heart,
Yeah.
her
Yeah.
identity, value, and worth and healing, you can't impart what you don't possess. How can I walk you through something that level that I have not walked through myself? So
Yeah.
that is unlocking the inner strength, because the end goal there is not just solving a problem. The end goal there is peace
Yeah.
and rest and confidence,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
we all desperately want, right?
Yeah. And when you say peace, I just hear, oh, because peace
Right.
is, I love it when you can get it. But it's interesting how some don't identify what really peace is. You know what I mean? Because they've never experienced it. In this all, what's your why?
Um, my why is, ever since I was younger, it's, the becoming more comes from, my tagline is, everyone becomes what they want to.
Mm,
Only some people think about becoming more. And the want is not like, well, I want to be president, but it's the want is your mental model formed from DNA, life experiences, and choices, is constantly throwing out suggestions. Like, if you hit the snooze button 7 times, your mental model suggested you do it, and that's what you want to do.
right.
So you can just go on autopilot, but some people think about becoming more.
Yeah.
So I use the -10 to +10 paradigm. -10 to 0 is counseling. When emotions are getting in the way of everyday life, I need to figure that out, which is fine. Then we get to 0, but we can't stop at 0, because then 0 to +10 is about becoming more effective, more emotionally intelligent, maximizing our KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities, and our gifts and talents to become more.
Yeah.
And that's fulfilling, again, vision, destiny, and purpose.
Yeah.
And it's on every bell curve. There's a bunch of bell curves that I'm on. So I'm not comparing myself to other people. There's 100 Gregs as far as being a husband.
Yeah.
There's 100 Gregs as a father, as a counselor. And so in comparing other people, I'm not worried about. I want to be in that top 95th. There is a Greg Stewart at the 97th percentile, and there's a gap from where I am currently and that Greg, but I can be that Greg. I
Mm.
want to become more and
Yes.
constantly challenge our mental model.
Yeah.
That's my why. Help people become more.
Yeah. And I love what you said, that everybody becomes what they want. And it's interesting because we're looking at like you just said, I want to be president. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be this. No, it's like, and it's ever changing. Am I correct? Like,
Yeah, our macro. Yeah, thank you for saying that. Our macro goals are they evolve over time. Like, of course, I wanted to be a police officer and Spider-Man when I was a kid, right?
yes,
Right. But as I grew, I started to find vision, destiny, purpose. So that evolves, of course, like because our values of what you say, what would bring me peace,
yeah,
fulfillment, rest, it really has to do with I help people develop their mission statements. And it is about like we have all this mission statement. I call it the Iron Man core in our heart, this energy source, and it's there. And we feel empty until we find it. And that's that's our true want down here at a deeper level. But the want simply has to do with your mental model is going to suggest things to you, your emotions, interpretations. That's where I cubed is information, interpretation, intensity. That it's going to suggest, it has to suggest to you. That's your want. The want is simply what your mental model does, right?
yeah,
But we have to challenge that mental model and constantly change it and form it according to what's in the moment, what's the most effective response. But long term, who do I want? Because want to be is not really our job. Who I want to be is living our values,
yes,
right? And destiny, purpose, calling. That's our want. But
yeah,
what blocks that is our present tense want of lack of impulse control, hitting the snooze button sometimes. I want to feel emotional goal. I want to feel healthy, be healthy, feel healthy. But in the want, my hit the snooze button 7 times.
yeah,
I want to do that. You can't say, and you can't blame the environment. And that's
yeah,
the other key,
yeah,
right? So it's not just about accountability. It's about removing power from the environment.
yeah,
That's really what's happening. Like other people don't control my want. I do,
yeah,
right? So I'm going to take back control and become independent and autonomous emotionally
yeah,
to become empowered emotionally to arrive at peace, rest, fulfillment by me choosing my pathways to do just that.
yeah, yeah.
Empowerment.
The word that I got out of all of this is accountability.
Mm.
We often look at everyone or the outside world to blame, right? And it just reminded me of pressing snooze. I had a story on Instagram, and I tell you, Dr. Stewart, I did not want to go work out. Every piece of me,
Right.
I didn't press the snooze. I didn't do all those things, and I got there, and I still knew I didn't want to, but there was a need to, you know what I mean? And so that's where I pull all of that out is your need has to overcome your wants to be able to become more, if I may say, you know what I mean? And so that more for me personally is I want to look in the mirror and see a different type of figure, right? So
Yes.
I couldn't follow the want. I needed to keep moving forward. And it's very interesting. So you're
And think about your emotional. Think about your emotional experience. Just do a quick reflection. The emotional feeling experience you had after you worked out versus if you wouldn't have worked out, there would have been a good emotional experience,
Mhm.
but it would have been much more shallow.
Yep.
You have a deeper emotional gratification after you do what you should do. So I
Yeah.
always like with parents and their kids, I said, look, the principle is duty and discipline before dopamine.
Yes.
Right? Duty
Yeah.
and discipline before dopamine. Because I mean, as adults, we have to do that, or else we won't be able to pay the rent, kind of thing.
Yes. Yes.
But that's what it is. It's even in the moment of I'm the dopamine is I just want to lay here, but the duty and discipline is I want that deeper, richer experience after I work out.
Yeah.
Because that's it builds your confidence. Because even though it feels good to stay in bed, we lose our value and worth
Yeah.
because we didn't work out, because it's again, it's impulse control, delay of gratification. It's really all about that emotional intelligence. But we're the reward of accountability. Like I own it. It's nobody else's fault. I own it. I want the deeper, richer living my value. I want to be healthy. I
Yeah.
want to live a long life. Right. And
Yeah.
that's where honestly the success is. So everyone becomes what they want to. Only some people think about becoming more, right? Because that is
So
our journey. That is the life journey for us all.
absolutely. Dr. Stewart, do you have a podcast?
Not yet. So after my book, so a couple of books, 2025 is my goal of doing a podcast. But right now it's being, and also like, again, this is new to me as far as even listening. I want to be on podcasts to master how the masters do it and figure out how to do this, right? Because eventually, yeah, I want to do a podcast on becoming more, but I need to get a couple more books out of the way, but I will start it, right? Right now it's about the books. Get the books on her.
Dr. Stewart,
Yep.
see, okay, I'm going to say this. A book sits on
Yeah.
the counter and it comes at the right time. That's legacy.
Yep.
A podcast and what
Yep.
you're doing with me right now, that we're on our social media like this, and that's come at the right scroll. You're quicker to be on a scroll than you would be to come off of a shelf. Yep.
Right.
Oh, I'm just saying. I'm
with you, because what is it?
You. Yes.
Right. I mean, how do we grow? I mean, I completely agree with you. How do we grow? It's almost like we grow, and this is intriguing. We talk about the application. Now I need to study and go back and do a deeper dive into the material for sure. But you're right, it sits there. But now let's talk about the application. What are the obstacles? Like, I want to be different. So what are my obstacles to being different? Choosing a different path, a more I call rational, healthy, wise, and right path to achieve the same emotional goal. Right. So it's the emotional goals are good. Are the paths we're taking to those emotional goals rational, healthy, wise, and right? There's the accountability.
Okay, well, Dr. Stewart, I'm going to see a podcast. I'm thinking maybe August. I may be able to click a button and be like, oh, that's Dr. Stewart. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I've been told that, and I am teachable, and I submit to that truth that I need to do a podcast.
You've given so much right now. And I can only imagine if you would be able to just do that and have that conversation and allow others to hear you say that. Because I tell you, I'm so focused in that I'm just like, I had to remember, no lie, Dr. Stewart, I had to remember I was on a podcast and not just having a conversation about something that changes not only myself and you, but changes the world if only we will allow it to.
Yeah.
So
that's very sweet. Thank you.
Yes. I'm pouring into you like you pour into everybody else. Dr.
Amen.
Stewart.
Right. Yeah.
It's your time, and I cannot wait to see. Please let people know how we can get in touch with you, and then your social media handles.
Right. So becomingmore.com is the easiest thing to remember. And then all my social media and everything is on there. The book is on Amazon. Just look for I3 book, right? But becomingmore.com, and that has all my social media and different things on it. And I'm posting at least 2 videos, less than a minute. I'm learning 2 videos every day, walking through the material of my book. So that's the part I'm learning, but that's on in all the social media. I'm posting those videos, and including YouTube and stuff on that. So becomingmore.com.
Everybody go and take a look. And you guys heard me, sometime in July, August, we'll be watching this podcast, and this is recorded and it will be all over the place. So audience, at the bottom, write your reviews, encourage Dr. Stewart, let him know what he's done for you. And thank you so much, Dr. Stewart, for spending your afternoon with me.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Javanka. Bless you. All right. Thanks all.
Bye.